Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of your day talking about cards from Lord of the Rings, the living card game. And my name is Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride. And today we are talking about Glorfindel from the Foundations of Stone adventure pack from the Dwarrowdelf cycle. He is a 5-threat hero, 3 attack, 1 defense, and an amazing 5 hit points. And his ability is Forced. Exhausted to commit to the quest, raise your threat by 1. Now, David, what's your thoughts on Glorfindel?
This version of Glorfindel is amazing. Going back to that original idea of stat line plus hit points is threat, this is 7 under that value. His stat line and hit points add up to 12, so he's 7 under. His stat line is really good anyways. The 3-3-1 is amazing. The 3 willpower and the 3 attack make him one of the higher heroes in each of those categories. The 1 defense is not all that good, but he's got 5 hit points to make up for it. So he's one of the most well-balanced characters that I can see. Then, forgetting all of those things that I said about his stats, the fact that he's got 5 threat, and he's part of the sphere, which naturally has threat reduction and has the Light of Valinor, it just seems like Glorfindel is a key component to almost any spirit deck or any deck that you want to have spirit in. When you're running him, even if you don't have the Light of Valinor, he's 7 under what his threat should be. So that gives you practically 7 rounds in order to put his threat, or to add enough threat to compensate for that extra that Fantasy Flight took off. So I really like Glorfindel. How about you?
I've got to agree with what you're saying, David. He is probably one of the best spirit characters in the game.
Hang on.
He has a powerful hit point pool, so you can quest without really worrying, even if you do have to exhaust him. He's very thematic. This version looks very thematic. It looks like he's just come out of battle from Morgoth or something.
Yeah.
I mean, you've mentioned a few cards that work well with him, the Light of Valinor.
Well, that's got to be an auto-include when you're running a Spirit Glorfindel deck.
But then you've also got cards like a Rivendell Blade that can cancel out 2 points of defense for an enemy. So that's still giving them, say, 5 attacks or 5 points worth of damage.
Right. I like the Elrond's Council too, because you need a unique Noldor, and Glorfindel fits that bill. And then you can raise anybody else's willpower by 1. So I like running that there, and plus it reduces your threat even more. If you don't get the Light of Valinor, you can do the Elrond's Council thing.
Glorfindel is probably one of the most overused and overpowered spirit heroes to date. You look at any other sphere, he is probably the lowest threat cost hero. So even if you're running, say, Glorfindel, Elrond, and Elladan, that's still 28 points of threat.
Right, and that's actually one of the beauties that Glorfindel does, is it allows you to have higher threat heroes without having to have your starting threat, near the Valor trigger, near that 40 mark.
A little trick I like to do was run with Boromir, Glorfindel, and Frodo, so that I had a low starting threat, but I was able to constantly increase my threat using Boromir's ability, and then drop it back down with the likes of Elrond's Council and Galadrim's Greeting and cards of such effect. However, since Boromir's been nerfed, that deck doesn't work as well anymore. But being that as it may, Glorfindel is still a key component in pretty much any deck that I run that I want to have spirit in.
I just can't get over that hero, that Glorfindel hero, was put into the spirit sphere. It matches who he is, along with, you know, maybe a tactics, maybe the lore version of him, or the, you know, but I think that spirit matches who he is, but it opens up so many natural benefits that you don't have to try to pull shenanigans with in order to pull out. The threat reduction, you know, there's a lot of unique Noldor cards that you can use for him. There's, you know, it just seems like a hurricane of perfectness that came together with him in terms of everything that you can do with him.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, apart from Frodo, I don't actually see me using a deck without Glorfindel in. Like a spirit deck without Glorfindel. Frodo and Glorfindel are two of my first choices for a spirit deck. And then you hire in Sam with that, you're still in secrecy level for a turn, and you've got access to cards like Bill the Pony, and obviously a timely aid.
You can use a greeting automatically.
Yeah.
If you draw a greeting, you're almost in secrecy no matter what heroes you're starting with. And I think that, I mean, I can't get into the mind of the creators, but it's like, you know, it's almost like he was designed to be used in the Hobbit decks before they were such a huge archetype with all of the attachments and events that Hobbits have, but it's almost like their guide.
Since they released, obviously, Glorfindel being in the Glorfindel cycle, I think he's the polar opposite of Elrond, where Elrond has such a high threat. They wanted something that could also deal with it within secrecy. And whereas with Elrond, at a staggering 13 threat, you're not always going to be able to do that with an Elrond deck. I mean, another card that came out in the Dwarrowdale cycle was Asphalloth, the horse that Glorfindel rides, which is so overpowered for location busting, especially in early game where locations don't have immune to player card effects.
Even the spirit ally of Glorfindel, you know, is really good, where you can, you know, discard a card in your hand and ready Glorfindel. Like, it just, I mean, not that we're talking about all the different versions of Glorfindel, but, yeah, I mean, just Glorfindel, the spirit versions, both ally and hero, just happen to be really awesome.
Especially now with more encounter cards having removed character text boxes blank except for traits.
Mm-hmm.
That can make a big difference for Glorfindel.
I think that the beauty of Glorfindel is that you don't have to use, other than the Light of Valinor, he is an all-around good hero. You don't have to, you know, get 7 cards out to try to use him, to try to buff him, to try to do these things. There's a lot of niche-y cards that are used for specific things.
Sorry, just to get it out there.
Or in the case of Bilbo, a lot of niche cards that aren't ever used. No, but you know what I mean? It's like, you know, this version of Glorfindel in the Spirit Sphere is awesome because you can use him. You're not building a card deck around his ability. You're not saying, well, I'm going to use Glorfindel because of his ability. You're saying, I want to build a Hobbit
deck around Glorfindel.
I want to build a Hobbit deck, and I'm going to include Glorfindel, or I want to build a, you know, however anti-thematic this is, but I want to build a dwarf deck and use Glorfindel in there to keep my threat down. Yeah,
I mean, even sticking with theme, you take a look at Glorfindel and you can see exactly if you want to run a noble deck, if you want to run a warrior deck, or even if you just want to run a Noldor deck. There is plenty of cards out there now for you to build pretty much a deck archetype of each individual trait. What I used to run is a Bard, the Bowman, Beregond, the Tactics version, and Glorfindel, and sitting at a cost of 25, I had 2 heroes with range, 1 hero with Sentinel, 1 hero with range that could attack 2 or 3, or defend 2 times and attack 2 times, or even 3. depending on who I wanted to put the unexpected courage on. And
Right.
that's the brilliant about Glorfindel. He allows you to do that.
So a card like Well Warned can go into into a deck where we're using Spirit Glorfindel because you're reducing your threat again, and it's kind of a unique version of threat reduction that if you're running something like Glorfindel and some other scout hero, or even a character that's a scout, you can play this card and it has 0 cost. So Well Warned, I think, plays well as well into a Glorfindel deck, a Spirit Glorfindel deck.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about Glorfindel. He is an option bearer. He's not the ring bearer, but he's an option bearer.
Well, should we ring him?
Yes, we shall. So, okay. David, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the one ring to rule them all, or the one card to rule them all, and 10 being the absolute dog worst of the worst, what would you rate Glorfindel as?
I think that I have to give Glorfindel my highest rating to date, and that's going to be 2 rings. He's just about as perfect as you can get in my mind for a hero. He has he's got a great stat line. His threat is amazing, and for anybody following the podcast, people know that I'm partial to low threat heroes. The thing that I would love to see that keeps him from the one card to rule them all, at least the one hero card to rule them all, would be his defense is just a touch low. To have just 1 defense is, in my mind, not very good. But he's in the right sphere. He has the right stat line in terms of attack and willpower, and he's got definitely the right threat. How about you, Grant? What do you think?
Well, in all honesty, he is definitely the closest I've seen to becoming the one card to rule them all. He's closer than Aragorn, that I rated at a 2. You also rated Aragorn at a 2. And quite frankly, with the toss-up between Aragorn and Glorfindel, my sentimentality puts him as Glorfindel at a 1.5. I have slightly more love for Glorfindel than I do Aragorn. Haters be hating.
Well, everybody, join us next time. In that episode of Card Talk, we're going to discuss the neutral ally Gandalf from the core set. So we will see you then. Have a good day.